The first wail of a newborn echoes through the sterile corridors of Denobula's premier medical facility. But it's not the cry that sends shockwaves through the hospital. It's the child itself. As Astra, a young Denobulan female, lies exhausted on the birthing table, the attending medical staff freeze in disbelief. The infant in their hands defies everything they know about Denobulan biology. Pink skin, so unlike the pale hue of Denobulans, covers the child's body. Its ears lack the distinctive points of their species, instead rounded in a way that's hauntingly familiar to those who've encountered humans. Yet the forehead ridges are unmistakably Denobulan. This child is an impossibility made flesh, a hybrid that shouldn't exist. Astra's relieved smile fades as she notices the tense silence in the room. "What's wrong?" she asks, her voice weak but filled with growing concern. A nurse, her hands trembling, brings the swaddled infant to Astra. The young mother's eyes widen in shock as she takes in her child's appearance. How is this possible?" she whispers, her fingers tracing the alien features of her baby's face. Alarms blare throughout the hospital as the medical staff initiate emergency protocols. Doctors in hazmat suits burst into the room, ushering out the original attendants and quickly quarantining Astra and her child. Outside, the news spreads like wildfire. Within minutes, Denobulan authorities descend upon the hospital, their faces grim with the weight of this unprecedented event. In a sealed room, Astra clutches her child to her chest as stern-faced officials pepper her with questions. "Have you had any contact with humans recently?" one demands. Astra's mind races, then settles on a memory from 6 months ago. "There was a human diplomat," she admits, her voice barely above a whisper. "Benjamin Walker. He was here for trade negotiations." The officials exchange loaded glances. One taps furiously on a communication device, relaying the information to higher authorities. The implications of this revelation ripple outward, crossing the vast expanse of space to reach Earth. In a quiet office on humanity's home planet, Benjamin Walker's comm unit chirps with an urgent priority message. His superior's face appears on the screen, etched with lines of worry. "Benjamin, there's been an incident on Denobula," the official begins, his words careful and measured. "A child has been born, a human Denobulan hybrid, and you're named as the potential father." Benjamin's world tilts on its axis. His mind reels back to his diplomatic mission to Denobula, to a brief, passionate encounter with a captivating Denobulan woman. He had never imagined, never thought it was possible. "You're to return to Denobula immediately," his superior continues, cutting through Benjamin's shock. "This situation is explosive, Walker. The Denobulans are demanding answers, and frankly, so are we. You need to sort this out before it becomes an interstellar incident." As Benjamin numbly begins to pack, reports flood in from both Earth and Denobula. News outlets buzz with speculation about the hybrid child. Scientists on both worlds scramble to understand the seemingly impossible genetics at play. Political pundits debate the potential fallout, the future of human-Denobulan relations hanging in the balance. On Denobula, the government moves swiftly, imposing harsh new restrictions on human visitors. Earth's leaders convene in emergency sessions, strategizing how to handle this diplomatic crisis. And caught in the middle of it all is a tiny infant, oblivious to the storm it has created simply by existing. Benjamin boards a starship bound for Denobula, his heart racing with a mixture of fear and an emotion he's not ready to name. As the ship breaks orbit, he stares out at the star-studded void, wondering what awaits him. Will he find a family he never expected? Or will he become the center of an interstellar conflict that could reshape the galaxy? The hybrid child's first cries have done more than announce its arrival. They've heralded a new era in human-alien relations, one that will test the limits of diplomacy, science, and the very definition of humanity itself. The starship's landing thrusters flared as it touched down on Denobulan soil, sending a plume of dust billowing across the spaceport. Benjamin Walker stood at the viewport, his heart hammering in his chest as he watched the alien landscape come into focus. The moment he'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure had finally arrived. As the ship's airlock hissed open, Benjamin was met with a wall of humid air and a delegation of stern-faced Denobulan officials. Their ridged foreheads were creased with tension, eyes sharp and assessing as they regarded the human diplomat. Ambassador Walker, a tall denobulan in ornate robes, stepped forward. "I am Minister Thalos. You will come with us immediately." No handshakes, no pleasantries. The gravity of the situation hung heavy in the air as Benjamin was escorted to a waiting transport. The vehicle hummed to life, whisking them through the sprawling denobulan capital. Benjamin's eyes darted from the towering spires to the curious faces of denobulans who paused to watch the procession. The transport came to a stop before a massive, gleaming structure, the high-security medical facility where Astra and the child were being held. Benjamin's throat tightened as he was led through a series of decontamination chambers and security checkpoints. Finally, they reached a sealed room. Through the transparent barrier, Benjamin saw her, Astra. She sat on a medical bed, cradling a small bundle in her arms. The sight of her striking denobulan features sent a jolt through him, memories of their passionate night flooding back. As the door slid open, Astra looked up. Their eyes met, a mixture of relief, fear, and something undefined passing between them. But it was the tiny face peeking out from the blankets that truly captured Benjamin's attention. The child, his child, blinked up at him with eyes that were unmistakably human, set in a face that bore the subtle ridges of denobulan heritage. Benjamin felt his breath catch, an unexpected surge of emotion rising in his chest. Ambassador Walker. A crisp voice cut through the moment. A denobulan in a physician's uniform stepped forward. "I am Dr. Phlox, Chief Xenobiologist. We have many questions for you." The next hours passed in a blur of intense questioning. Benjamin recounted every detail of his previous diplomatic mission, culminating in the night of the gala where he and Astra had come together. "We believed it was impossible," Benjamin explained, his voice strained. "The genetic differences, we never thought conception could occur." His words sent a ripple of murmurs through the assembled denobulan scientists. Dr. Phlox's eyes gleamed with fascination. "Impossible, and yet—" He gestured to the child. As the interrogation continued, tension in the room mounted. Accusations of genetic contamination and diplomatic breaches flew. Just as it seemed the situation might explode, Astra's voice cut through the chaos. "Stop!" she demanded, her tone firm despite her obvious exhaustion. "Ambassador Walker is not to blame. Our encounter was consensual, and neither of us could have foreseen this outcome." Her words seemed to deflate some of the hostility, replacing it with a heavy silence. Dr. Phlox seized the moment, activating a holographic display of complex genetic sequences. "Preliminary tests show a remarkable compatibility between human and denobulan DNA," he explained, excitement coloring his voice. "This child's unique genetic makeup could revolutionize our understanding of xenobiology." As the implications of Dr. Phlox's words sank in, Benjamin's comm unit chirped. A message from Earth's diplomatic corps scrolled across the screen, reminding him of his diplomatic immunity and the delicate nature of the situation. "I request a moment, alone with Astra and the child," Benjamin said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. After a tense pause, the room cleared. Benjamin approached the bed where Astra sat, his steps hesitant. Up close, the reality of their situation hit him full force. "I never imagined," he began, words failing him as he gazed at the infant. Astra nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Neither did I. But now—" She looked down at their child, a mix of fear and love in her expression. "What will happen to us, Benjamin?" Before he could answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Phlox burst back into the room, his face a mask of concern. "Protesters have breached the outer perimeter," he announced. "We must move you to a secure location immediately." As they were rushed through the corridors, Benjamin caught glimpses of the chaos outside. Crowds of denobulans pressed against the facility's gates, their chants echoing through the air. Some called for scientific inquiry, others for isolation in genetic purity. In a fortified inner chamber, Benjamin, Astra, and their child huddled together, the weight of two worlds pressing down upon them. As security forces battled to maintain order outside, the denobulan government convened an emergency council. The fate of this unprecedented family, and perhaps the future of human denobulan relations, hung in the balance. Benjamin tightened his hold on Astra and the child, bracing himself for whatever challenges lay ahead. The fortified inner chamber provided a momentary respite from the chaos outside, but Benjamin knew it was only temporary. He glanced at Astra, who cradled their child protectively, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and apprehension. Their moment of quiet was abruptly shattered as the door slid open, revealing Dr. Phlox and a contingent of denobulan officials. "Ambassador Walker Astra," Dr. Phlox said, his voice tinged with urgency, "your presence is required at an emergency council meeting." Benjamin's heart raced as they were escorted through a series of secured corridors. The distant sound of protesters' chants echoed through the walls, a constant reminder of the turmoil their child's existence had unleashed. As they entered the Grand Council chamber, Benjamin was struck by the gravity of the situation. The room buzzed with tension, filled with representatives from both Earth and Denobula. At the center of it all sat their child, now named Zara, blissfully unaware of the storm surrounding her. Dr. Phlox stepped forward, activating a holographic display that filled the chamber with swirling strands of DNA. "Esteemed council members," he began, his voice carrying a hint of excitement despite the circumstances, "I present to you our preliminary findings on Zara's genetic makeup." The room fell silent as Dr. Phlox explained the unprecedented combinations of human and denobulan genes found in Zara's DNA. "This unique genetic structure," he continued, gesturing to specific points in the hologram, "could potentially unlock treatments for diseases affecting both our species." A murmur rippled through the audience. Benjamin saw hope and fascination in some faces, while others twisted with concern and suspicion. The debate that followed was intense. Council members argued back and forth, their voices rising as they discussed the potential benefits and risks of Zara's existence. Benjamin felt a growing unease as he realized the full implications of their situation. Suddenly, the chamber doors burst open, and a new figure strode in, flanked by a team of humans in crisp uniforms. "Admiral Marcus Chen, United Space Command," the man announced, his voice cutting through the commotion. Benjamin tensed as he recognized the insignia on Chen's uniform. The Admiral's presence could only complicate matters further. Chen wasted no time in making his position clear. "The child must be brought to Earth for further study," he declared, his tone brooking no argument. "This is a scientific breakthrough of monumental proportions." The Denobulan Council members erupted in protest. Chief Minister Thalos rose to his feet, his ridged forehead flushed with anger. "Absolutely not," he thundered. "Zara is a Denobulan citizen by birth. She will remain here, under our protection and care." The chamber descended into chaos as both sides argued their points. Benjamin watched helplessly as years of carefully cultivated diplomatic relations threatened to unravel before his eyes. Unable to stand idle any longer, Benjamin caught Astra's gaze. She nodded, understanding, passing between them. "We request permission to address the council," Benjamin called out, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his heart. A hush fell over the room as Benjamin stepped forward. "Members of the council," he began, "I stand before you not just as a diplomat, but as a father. The conception of our child was unintended, but I am fully committed to taking responsibility for my actions." Astra joined him. Zara nestled in her arms. "Zara is my daughter," she said, her voice filled with fierce grit. "I have the right to raise her here, on the planet of her birth, surrounded by her denobulan heritage." Their words seemed to fall on deaf ears as the council members quickly resumed their heated debate. Proposals flew back and forth, joint custody arrangements, neutral scientific outposts, and more extreme measures that made Benjamin's blood run cold. As the argument reached a fever pitch, a new sound cut through the din. Zara, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, let out a high-pitched cry that was neither fully human nor denobulan. The unique timbre of her voice silenced the room instantly. Dr. Phlox rushed to examine the child, his eyes widening as he ran a scanner over her tiny form. "Remarkable," he breathed. "Zara's physiology is advancing at an accelerated rate. Her cognitive abilities are far beyond what we'd expect from a newborn of either species." This revelation sent a fresh wave of shock through the council. Admiral Chen's eyes gleamed with renewed interest, while Chief Minister Thelos looked more concerned than ever. "We will take a recess to consider this new information," Thelos announced, his voice strained. "Ambassador Walker, Astra, you will be escorted to a private chamber." As they were led away, Benjamin caught glimpses of the world outside through the chamber's windows. Crowds of denobulans had gathered, their chants and signs visible even from a distance. Some called for scientific inquiry, while others demanded the expulsion of all humans from their planet. In the relative quiet of their private chamber, Benjamin, Astra, and Zara found a moment of peace. As they gazed down at their daughter, marveling at her unique features, Benjamin felt a surge of protectiveness. "What's going to happen to us?" Astra whispered, voicing the fear that plagued them both. Before Benjamin could respond, a commotion outside their door signaled the end of their brief respite. Dr. Phlox entered, his face grave. "We must move you to a more secure location," he said urgently. "News of Zara's accelerated development has leaked to the public. The situation outside is volatile." As they were hurried through the government complex, Benjamin caught fleeting glimpses of the chaos erupting on the streets of the denobulan capital. The weight of their responsibility settled heavily upon his shoulders. Zara, sensing the tension, let out another of her unique cries. Benjamin and Astra exchanged a look of equal parts wonder and worry. Whatever the council decided when it reconvened, they knew their lives, and potentially the future of human denobulan relations, would never be the same. As the gravity of their situation settled upon them, the door to their secure chamber slid open once more. Dr. Phlox entered, his face etched with concern. "The council is reconvening," he announced. "They've requested your presence immediately." Benjamin and Astra exchanged a glance, steeling themselves for what lay ahead. With Zara cradled securely in Astra's arms, they followed Dr. Phlox through the winding corridors of the government complex. The council chamber buzzed with tension as they entered. Chief Minister Thelos and Admiral Chen stood at the center, their previous animosity seemingly set aside as they addressed the gathered officials. Benjamin noted the shift in their demeanor, a hint of cooperation where before there had been only conflict. "After extensive negotiations," Thelos began, his voice carrying across the hushed room, "we propose a joint research initiative. This would allow for the study of Zara's unique genetic makeup while ensuring denobulan sovereignty is respected." Before Admiral Chen could add his support, alarms blared throughout the complex. The chamber erupted into chaos as security forces burst through the doors, their weapons drawn. "Extremists have breached the building's defenses," one officer shouted above the din. "We must evacuate immediately." Benjamin's diplomatic training kicked in as he assessed the situation. He pulled Astra close, shielding Zara with his body as they were quickly ushered out of the chamber by a mixed team of human and denobulan security personnel. As they navigated the maze-like corridors, the sounds of conflict echoed around them. Shouts and the occasional energy weapon discharge reverberated through the halls. At one junction, they encountered a group of denobulan extremists, their eyes blazing with fanatical fervor. "Hand over the abomination," the leader demanded, gesturing towards Zara. Benjamin stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "We mean you no harm," he said, his voice calm despite the pounding of his heart. "Let us pass, and we can discuss this peacefully." For a tense moment, it seemed the standoff would erupt into violence. Then one of the denobulan security officers spoke up, addressing the extremists in their native tongue. The rapid-fire exchange that followed was unintelligible to Benjamin, but he saw the tension in the extremist postures begin to ease. With a grudging nod, the group parted, allowing Benjamin, Astra, and their escorts to pass. As they hurried on, Benjamin caught snippets of conversation identifying the extremist leader as someone named Vox. The security team led them deeper into the complex, finally arriving at a heavily fortified door. It slid open to reveal an underground bunker, its walls lined with advanced technology. Dr. Phlox was already inside, setting up medical equipment with practiced efficiency. "This facility is designed to withstand significant attacks," Dr. Phlox explained as they entered. "The life support systems can sustain us for weeks if necessary." As the door sealed behind them, cutting off the sounds of conflict, Zara let out a cry unlike anything they had heard before. It was neither fully human nor denobulan, but a unique blend of both. Ma, Zara mumbled, her tiny brow furrowed in concentration. Benjamin and Astra stared at their daughter in astonishment. Dr. Phlox rushed over, scanner in hand, his eyes wide with excitement. Remarkable, he exclaimed. Zara's neurological development is accelerating at an unprecedented rate. The stress of the situation may be triggering rapid growth in her hybrid physiology. As Dr. Phlox continued his examination, Benjamin and Astra found themselves drawn together, seeking comfort in each other's presence. They shared a look of wonder and trepidation, the full weight of their unique situation settling upon them. "What do you think will happen now?" Astra whispered, gently rocking Zara in her arms. Benjamin shook his head, his gaze fixed on their daughter. "I don't know," he admitted, "but whatever comes, we'll face it together." Dr. Phlox observed their interaction with interest, his scientific curiosity piqued by this living example of human denobulan integration. Meanwhile, in another part of the complex, Admiral Chen and Chief Minister Thalos found themselves trapped together, cut off from their respective security details. The sounds of Vox's followers searching the nearby rooms spurred them into action. "This way," Thalos hissed, gesturing towards a hidden panel in the wall. "There's a network of maintenance tunnels we can use to evade capture." As they navigated the narrow passageways, an unexpected camaraderie began to form between the two leaders. Their shared predicament forced them to set aside their differences and work together. "I must admit," Chen said as they paused to catch their breath, "your people's ingenuity is impressive. These tunnels could prove invaluable for joint security operations in the future." Thalos nodded, a hint of a smile on his face. "Perhaps there is more our species could learn from each other than we initially thought." Back in the bunker, Zara's development continued to astonish her parents and Dr. Phlox. She began forming more complex sounds, mixing elements of both human and denobulan languages. "Fascinating," Dr. Phlox murmured, reviewing the data on his scanner. "Zara's brain is creating new neural pathways at an exponential rate. She's integrating both languages simultaneously." As Benjamin and Astra marveled at their daughter's progress, the communication system in the bunker crackled to life. A strong, authoritative voice filled the room. "This is Captain Lyra of the Denobulan Defense Force. We're initiating a rescue operation to extract all trapped personnel. Stand by for further instructions." Hope surged through the group as they realized help was on the way. Outside the bunker, Captain Lyra coordinated with Earth's United Space Command, combining human and denobulan tactical teams in an unprecedented joint operation. As the rescue mission unfolded above them, Zara's abilities continued to evolve. She began responding to both human and denobulan communications, serving as an impromptu translator for her parents and Dr. Phlox. The sounds of conflict grew closer, punctuated by the distinctive whine of energy weapons. Benjamin held Astra close, their bodies shielding Zara as they waited anxiously for news of their rescuers. Suddenly, the bunker's door slid open, revealing Captain Lyra and her team. As they rushed in to secure the area, Zara's voice rang out, clear and strong. "Safe now? Together? Strong," she said, her words a perfect blend of human and denobulan languages. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to the remarkable child. In that moment, as they prepared to leave the safety of the bunker and face the chaos above, the true potential of human denobulan cooperation was made starkly clear. Captain Lyra stepped forward, her expression a mix of awe and dedication. "We need to move quickly," she said, gesturing towards the exit. "The situation above is still volatile." As they prepared to leave the bunker, Benjamin and Astra exchanged a look of trepidation and hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew that Zara's unique existence had already begun to bridge the gap between their two species in ways they could never have imagined. The bunker door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing Captain Lyra and her team. Benjamin instinctively tightened his grip on Astra and Zara as the rescue squad swept into the room, their weapons at the ready. "Area secure," one of the denobulan soldiers announced after a quick sweep. Captain Lyra stepped forward, her posture relaxed but alert. "We need to move quickly," she said, gesturing towards the exit. "The situation above is still volatile." As they prepared to leave the safety of the bunker, Zara's clear voice rang out once more. "Safe path. Follow," she said, her words a perfect blend of human and denobulan languages. The rescue team exchanged surprised glances, but Captain Lyra nodded decisively. "You heard her. Let's move out." They emerged from the bunker into a scene of controlled chaos. The government complex bore the scars of recent conflict, scorch marks on walls, overturned furniture, and the acrid smell of discharged energy weapons hanging in the air. Security personnel, both human and denobulan, moved with purpose, securing areas and tending to the injured. As they navigated the debris-strewn corridors, Zara's voice became an unexpected asset. She effortlessly translated between the human and denobulan members of the rescue team, facilitating smooth communication in the heat of the moment. "2 levels up. Hostiles neutralized," Zara relayed, her tiny brow furrowed in concentration. Captain Lyra raised an eyebrow but didn't hesitate to act on the information. "You heard her. Team Alpha, secure the route to the upper levels." As they ascended, they encountered a group of human security officers escorting Admiral Chen and Chief Minister Thalos. The two leaders looked disheveled but unharmed, a newfound camaraderie evident in their body language. "Ambassador Walker," Chen called out, relief evident in his voice. "I'm glad to see you and your family safe." Thalos nodded in agreement, his eyes widening as he took in Zara's alert gaze. "Is it true what we've heard? Has the child's development accelerated even further?" Before Benjamin could respond, Zara spoke up. "Greetings, leaders. Cooperation key to safety," she said, seamlessly switching between human standard and denobulan. The corridor fell silent for a moment, the full implications of Zara's abilities sinking in. Chen and Thalos exchanged a look of wonder and apprehension. "We need to get you all to a secure location," Captain Lyra interjected, breaking the spell. "We can discuss the implications later." As they moved through the complex, signs of the recent battle became more evident. They passed a group of denobulan security officers, leading away a handful of subdued extremists. Benjamin recognized their leader as Vox, the fanatic who had confronted them earlier. Vox's eyes locked onto Zara, a mix of fear and awe replacing his earlier hostility. "The prophecy," he muttered in denobulan. "It's true." Zara turned to her father, translating effortlessly. "He speaks of old stories, Pa, misunderstood tales of unity." Benjamin marveled at his daughter's insight, noting how her words seemed to deflate some of the remaining tension in Vox's followers. They finally emerged from the government complex into the denobulan capital. The streets were a hive of activity, with emergency vehicles and curious onlookers held back by a mixed force of human and denobulan peacekeepers. As they were ushered into a heavily guarded transport vehicle, Benjamin caught snippets of news broadcasts playing on public screens. Footage of human and denobulan forces working together to purpose the crisis played alongside interviews with relieved citizens praising the joint effort. Inside the transport, Dr. Phlox wasted no time in examining Zara. "Remarkable," he muttered, his scanner humming. "Her neural pathways are reconfiguring in real time. It's as if she's adapting to the very situation around her." Admiral Chen leaned forward, his earlier wariness replaced by genuine curiosity. "Doctor, what are the implications of this development?" As Phlox launched into a technical explanation, Chief Minister Thalos turned to Benjamin and Astra. "Your daughter," he said softly. "She may be the key to a new era of understanding between our peoples." Astra nodded, her eyes never leaving Zara. "She's a bridge between worlds," she said. "But she's also our child. We need to ensure her safety and well-being come first." The transport wound its way through the denobulan capital, eventually arriving at a nondescript building on the outskirts. As they disembarked, Captain Lyra explained, "This is a temporary secure facility. We'll begin setting up a more permanent research center once things have stabilized." Inside, they were greeted by a mixed team of human and denobulan scientists, their excitement impossibly strong as they caught sight of Zara. The child, seemingly unfazed by the attention, began conversing with them in a mix of languages, her vocabulary expanding with each passing minute. As the scientists huddled around Zara, Benjamin pulled Admiral Chen and Chief Minister Thalos aside. "What happens now?" he asked, his diplomatic training kicking in despite his personal stake in the situation. Chen sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Honestly, Benjamin, we're in uncharted territory. The existence of a viable human denobulan hybrid changes everything." Thelos nodded in agreement. "We need to draft new legislation, establish protocols for interspecies relationships. And that's just the beginning." A commotion near the facility's communication center caught their attention. Captain Lyra approached, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Sirs," she said, addressing both Chen and Thelos, "we're receiving transmissions from multiple alien species. Word of Zara's existence has spread faster than we anticipated. They're requesting information, proposing diplomatic exchanges." The implications hung heavy in the air. Benjamin looked over at Astra and Zara, the latter now engrossed in a complex discussion with a denobulan xenolinguist. He realized that their personal journey had become irrevocably intertwined with the future of interstellar relations. As the facility buzzed with activity around them, Benjamin and Astra shared a moment of quiet understanding. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, with Zara as their guiding star in this new and unexplored cosmic sea. Cosmic frontier they now navigated. In the months that followed, the joint human denobulan research facility transformed from a hastily assembled outpost to a state-of-the-art complex. Benjamin and Astra watched with a mixture of pride and apprehension as their temporary quarters evolved into a permanent home, complete with laboratories that would have made the most advanced research institutions on Earth green with envy. Dr. Phlox, now the lead scientist of the hybrid research program, bustled through the facility's pristine corridors, his enthusiasm infectious as he coordinated teams of human and denobulan experts. The air hummed with the constant chatter of multiple languages, punctuated by the beeps and whirs of advanced equipment. At the center of it all was Zara, whose growth continued to defy all expectations. In mere months, she had developed the physical appearance and cognitive abilities of a 5-year-old child. Benjamin often found himself staring in wonder as his daughter engaged in complex conversations with seasoned linguists, switching effortlessly between human and alien tongues. One morning, as Benjamin sipped his coffee in the family's private quarters, he overheard Zara conversing with a denobulan xenobiologist in a language he didn't recognize. "What language is that, sweetheart?" he asked, curiosity getting the better of him. Zara turned, her eyes bright with excitement. "It's Andorian, Pa. Dr. Villar taught me yesterday. Did you know they have 4 genders?" Benjamin blinked, momentarily at a loss for words. Before he could respond, the facility's communication system crackled to life. "Ambassador Walker, your presence is requested in the main conference room," Captain Lyra's voice announced. "We have a new arrival." Exchanging a glance with Astra, who had just entered the room, Benjamin made his way to the conference area. As the door slid open, he was greeted by the sight of a tall, austere figure with pointed ears and an impassive expression. "Ambassador Walker," Admiral Chen said, gesturing to the newcomer, "may I present Ambassador Krell of the Vulcan High Command." The Vulcan's presence sent a ripple of surprise through the room. The Vulcans had shown little interest in human-alien affairs until now, their participation potentially shifting the balance of interstellar politics. As introductions were made, Zara entered the room, her small form drawing the Vulcan's attention immediately. Krell's eyebrow raised a fraction, the Vulcan equivalent of open astonishment. "Greetings, Ambassador Krell," Zara said in flawless Vulcan, her small hand raised in the traditional salute. "Your presence honors us." Krell's response was cut short as Zara's eyes suddenly unfocused, her breathing becoming deep and rhythmic. To the astonishment of all present, she began reciting a complex series of Vulcan mental disciplines, her voice taking on a trance-like quality. The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on the small girl. Even Krell seemed taken aback, his composure slipping for a moment before he regained control. "Fascinating," Dr. Phlox murmured, his scanner humming as he analyzed Zara's brainwaves. "She appears to be tapping into latent telepathic abilities. The implications are extraordinary." As the gravity of the situation sank in, Benjamin felt a familiar knot of anxiety form in his stomach. He exchanged a worried glance with Astra, both of them acutely aware of the increasing pressure their daughter was under. The news of Zara's latest ability spread through the facility like wildfire, intensifying the already constant stream of scientists and diplomats clamoring for access to the young hybrid. Benjamin and Astra found themselves spending more time managing interview requests and fending off overzealous researchers than actually parenting their daughter. One evening, as they prepared for yet another diplomatic dinner, Astra voiced her concerns. "Benjamin, I'm worried about Zara. She's not having a normal childhood. All this attention, the constant tests and interviews, it's too much." Benjamin nodded, his own reservations bubbling to the surface. "I know, but what can we do? The work being done here is vital for interspecies relations." Their conversation was interrupted by Captain Lyra, who entered with a grim expression. "Ambassador, we've detected increased chatter among fringe groups opposed to our work here. It seems Vox's attack has inspired others. We're implementing enhanced security measures, but I thought you should be aware." As Benjamin processed this new threat, Dr. Phlox burst into the room, his face alight with excitement. "Ambassador, Mrs. Walker, you won't believe what we've discovered in Zara's blood work. There's a unique protein that could revolutionize medicine for both our species." The news should have been cause for celebration, but Benjamin felt only a deepening sense of unease. He watched as Astra's expression tightened, knowing she shared his concerns about the increasing demands being placed on their daughter. Later that night, as the facility quieted, Benjamin and Astra stood at the window of their quarters, looking out at the unfamiliar denobulan sky. Zara slept fitfully in the next room, her dreams filled with languages and concepts far beyond her years. "We need to do something," Astra whispered, her voice barely audible. "For Zara's sake." Benjamin nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. "We'll find a way to give her a normal life, away from all this. Whatever it takes." As they began to discuss possibilities, neither noticed the shadow that passed by their door, nor the faint sound of retreating footsteps. In the darkness of the corridor, Dr. Elena Rossi, newly arrived at the facility, smiled to herself. The Walkers' plans could complicate her own agenda, but they also presented an intriguing opportunity. As she made her way back to her quarters, her mind raced with the possibilities that lay ahead. As Dr. Elena Rossi retreated to her quarters, Benjamin and Astra finalized their plans in hushed tones, unaware of the events their decision would set in motion. The next morning, Benjamin and Astra moved with practiced casualness as they prepared for what appeared to be a routine outing with Zara. They packed a small bag with snacks and games, maintaining a facade of normalcy for the benefit of the facility's staff. As they made their way through the complex, Zara's hand clasped tightly in Astra's. Benjamin nodded politely to passing researchers and security personnel. His heart raced, but years of diplomatic training allowed him to maintain a calm exterior. They had almost reached the exit when Dr. Elena Rossi emerged from a side corridor, her eyes narrowing as she took in the family's appearance. "Heading out for the day, Ambassador?" she asked, her tone deceptively light. Benjamin forced a smile. "Just a short excursion. Zara's been cooped up in the lab all week." Rossi's gaze lingered on the bag slung over Astra's shoulder. "Of course. Enjoy your outing." As the family continued towards the exit, Rossi fell into step behind them, maintaining a discreet distance. Benjamin felt a prickle of unease but pressed on, knowing they couldn't afford to arouse suspicion now. The denobulan sun beat down as they stepped outside, its unfamiliar warmth a stark reminder of how far they were from home. Benjamin scanned the area, locating the small, unmarked spacecraft they had arranged for their escape. It sat innocuously on a nearby landing pad, its pilot feigning routine maintenance checks. They had barely taken a dozen steps when Captain Lyra's voice rang out. "Ambassador Walker!" Benjamin turned to see Lyra approaching rapidly, flanked by a mixed team of human and denobulan guards. His stomach dropped as he realized their plan had been discovered. "Is there a problem, Captain?" Astra asked, her voice steady despite the tension evident in her posture. Lyra's expression was a mix of concern and disappointment. "I think you know there is, Mrs. Walker. Our security systems detected unauthorized transport arrangements. I'm afraid I can't allow you to leave the facility." The guards spread out, forming a loose semicircle around the family. Benjamin stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Captain, please. We're just trying to do what's best for our daughter." "By kidnapping her from a secure facility," Lyra countered, "you know how important Zara is to our research, to the future of human-denobulin relations." As the standoff intensified, Zara's eyes began to glow with an otherworldly light. Before anyone could react, a shimmering force field sprang into existence around the family, pushing back the approaching guards. "What in the name of—" Lyra gasped, her hand passing through empty air where it met the invisible barrier. The commotion drew the attention of Admiral Chen and Chief Minister Thalos, who came running from the main building. Their expressions shifted from confusion to awe as they took in the scene before them. "Zara," Astra whispered, kneeling beside her daughter. "How are you doing this?" The young girl's face was a mask of concentration. "I don't know, Ma. I just didn't want them to take us away." Dr. Phlox arrived moments later, his medical scanner already whirring as he analyzed Zara's new ability. "Extraordinary," he muttered. "The stress appears to have triggered a latent psionic capability, but the energy expenditure, we need to monitor her closely." Before anyone could respond, an explosion rocked the facility. Alarms blared as smoke billowed from a breach in the perimeter wall. Through the haze, Benjamin could make out a group of armed figures advancing rapidly. "It's Vox!" Captain Lyra shouted, recognizing the lead attacker. "He's escaped and breached our defenses." The extremists opened fire, energy weapons filling the air with deadly bolts. Lyra and her team scrambled for cover, returning fire as civilians ran for safety. "We need to get Zara inside," Chen yelled over the chaos. Benjamin nodded, his earlier plans forgotten in the face of this new threat. "Zara, honey, can you drop the force field?" The barrier flickered and disappeared. Without hesitation, Benjamin scooped Zara into his arms and sprinted for the nearest secure entrance, Astra close behind. As they ran, Benjamin caught sight of Dr. Rossi slipping away from the battle, moving with purpose towards the main research wing. He filed the observation away, focusing on the immediate danger. Inside, the facility was a hive of frantic activity. Security teams rushed to defensive positions, while scientists hurried to secure vital data and equipment. "Ambassador," Lyra called, her uniform singed but her voice steady. "We need your help coordinating communication between our forces. Your expertise in both human and denobulin protocols could be crucial." Benjamin hesitated, torn between his duty and his need to protect his family. Astra squeezed his arm. "Go. I'll stay with Zara." Nodding gratefully, Benjamin joined Lyra at a makeshift command center. As he began relaying orders in a mix of English and denobulin, he saw Astra and Zara being ushered to a secure area by Dr. Phlox. The battle raged on, Vox's forces pushing deeper into the facility, despite the valiant defense mounted by the joint human denobulin security teams. Benjamin's diplomatic skills were put to the test, as he facilitated seamless cooperation between the diverse group of defenders. Suddenly, Zara's voice echoed through Benjamin's mind, clear and urgent. "Pa, the bad people are coming, and the doctor lady is trying to steal something important." Benjamin's eyes widened as he realized Zara's telepathic abilities had expanded. He relayed the warning to Lyra, who immediately dispatched teams to reinforce the inner sanctum and the main database. As the sounds of combat drew nearer, Benjamin knew the next few moments would determine not just their fate, but the future of human denobulin relations. With Vox's forces closing in and Dr. Rossi's betrayal complicating matters, he steeled himself for the challenges ahead, hoping that the bonds forged between their two species would be strong enough to weather this storm. This crisis. With a deep breath, Benjamin turned his attention back to the tactical display, coordinating the defense efforts with renewed drive. The battle raged for hours, but the combined forces of the human denobulin security teams eventually prevailed. Vox and his extremists were captured, and the facility was secured. As the dust settled, Benjamin reunited with Astra and Zara, holding them close amidst the wreckage of the main atrium. In the days that followed, the facility buzzed with activity as repairs were made and security protocols were overhauled. Benjamin and Astra, shaken by the close call, agreed to postpone any plans for leaving. Instead, they worked with Dr. Phlox and Captain Lyra to implement changes that would give Zara more freedom and a semblance of normalcy within the confines of the facility. Weeks passed, and a tentative calm settled over the compound. Zara's daily routine now included supervised outings to the facility's gardens and social interactions with a carefully selected group of children from both human and denobulan families. Her abilities continued to develop, but at a more manageable pace. One balmy afternoon, as Benjamin watched Zara playing with her new friends from the observation deck, Admiral Chen approached with a concerned expression. "Ambassador, we have a situation," Chen said quietly. "Ambassador Krell has returned, and he's not alone." Benjamin's brow furrowed as he followed Chen to the main conference room. There they found a delegation of Vulcan scientists, their faces impassive as they stood beside Ambassador Krell. "Greetings, Ambassador Walker," Krell intoned, raising his hand in the traditional Vulcan salute. "We have come to discuss a matter of great importance regarding your daughter." As Krell outlined the Vulcans' proposal to relocate Zara to their homeworld for intensive study, Benjamin felt a knot forming in his stomach. The offer was tempting. The Vulcans' expertise in telepathy was unparalleled. But the thought of sending Zara away filled him with dread. The news spread quickly through the facility, sparking heated debates among the staff. Benjamin found himself at the center of a whirlwind of conflicting opinions and advice. "This is an unprecedented opportunity," Admiral Chen argued during a tense meeting with the facility's leadership. "Think of the diplomatic advantages it could bring." Chief Minister Thalos, however, was less enthused. "Zara is as much a child of Denobula as she is of Earth," he countered. "We cannot simply hand her over to the Vulcans." Dr. Phlox, his normally cheerful demeanor subdued, raised his own concerns. "We must consider the physiological implications," he cautioned. "Zara's hybrid nature makes her unique. Vulcan training methods may have unforeseen effects on her development." As the debate raged on, Benjamin sought out Astra, finding her in Zara's room. Their daughter sat cross-legged on the bed, her eyes closed in deep concentration as she practiced her newly developed telepathic abilities. "What do you think?" Benjamin asked softly, watching Zara with a mixture of pride and concern. Astra sighed, her gaze never leaving their daughter. "I don't know, Ben. The logical part of me sees the benefits, but—" She trailed off, unable to voice the fear they both felt. Zara's eyes snapped open, startling both her parents. "I want to go," she said, her voice carrying a maturity that belied her young age. "I want to learn." Benjamin and Astra exchanged worried glances, realizing that their decision had just become infinitely more complicated. Before they could respond, Captain Lyra burst into the room, her face grave. "Ambassador, Mrs. Walker, we have a security breach. Our systems are under attack." Alarms blared throughout the facility as Benjamin rushed to the command center. The screens were alive with flashing warnings, indicating multiple points of intrusion into their computer networks. "It's a sophisticated cyber attack," one of the human technicians reported, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "They're targeting Zara's files specifically." "Who's behind this?" Benjamin demanded, watching as the joint human-denobulan security team worked feverishly to repel the attack. Captain Lyra's expression darkened. "We've identified the source. It's a group called the Genetic Purity Front. They're after Zara's medical records and genetic data." As the battle in cyberspace raged on, Benjamin realized that the decision about Zara's future had just become even more urgent. The facility was no longer the safe haven they had believed it to be, and the threats to his daughter were multiplying by the day. With the Vulcans' offer on the table and this new menace emerging from the shadows, Benjamin knew that he and Astra faced a choice that would shape not only Zara's future, but potentially the course of interspecies relations for years to come. As he watched the frantic efforts to secure their systems, Benjamin steeled himself for the difficult conversations and decisions that lay ahead. With a deep breath, Benjamin turned back to the tactical display, his mind racing with possibilities. As the dust settled and repairs began, Benjamin and Astra found themselves facing an unexpected dilemma. The Vulcan delegation's arrival had sparked intense debate among the facility's staff, with opinions divided on whether to accept their offer to relocate Zara for specialized training. After days of heated discussions and sleepless nights, Benjamin and Astra made the difficult decision to accept the Vulcan proposal. They believed it offered Zara the best chance to develop her abilities safely, away from the growing threat of the genetic purity front. Dr. Phlox conducted a final series of examinations on Zara, his face creased with concentration as he analyzed the results. "Fascinating," he murmured, eyes fixed on his scanner. "It appears Zara's hybrid physiology has begun to stabilize further. This could lead to more predictable development of her abilities." Benjamin nodded, a mix of relief and apprehension washing over him. "That's good news, Doctor. But will she be able to handle the journey to Vulcan?" "I believe so," Phlox replied, his characteristic optimism shining through. "With the proper precautions, of course." As word of their impending departure spread, tensions rose within the facility. Benjamin overheard heated arguments between human and denobulan scientists, their voices echoing down the corridors. "We can't just let them take her," one researcher exclaimed. "Our work here is crucial to understanding hybrid physiology." Admiral Chen stepped in, his voice calm but firm. "This isn't just about scientific research. We have to consider the diplomatic implications. Strengthening our ties with the Vulcans could be invaluable." Chief Minister Thalos nodded in agreement. "Besides, we're not losing access to Zara entirely. We'll still receive regular updates on her progress." Captain Lyra threw herself into the task of ensuring the family's safe passage to Vulcan. Benjamin watched as she pored over star charts and security protocols, assembling a joint human-denobulan escort fleet. "We'll be incorporating advanced cloaking technology," Lyra explained, pointing to a holographic display of the ships. "It should shield our movements from any GPF interference." The day of departure arrived with a flurry of activity. Benjamin helped Astra pack the last of their belongings, while Zara said tearful goodbyes to her new friends. As they boarded the specially modified shuttle, Benjamin couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into the unknown. Just as the pre-flight checks were nearing completion, a frantic comm message came through. "Captain Lyra," a security officer's voice crackled. "Dr. Rossi has escaped custody. We have reason to believe she's made contact with GPF operatives." Lyra's face hardened as she processed the news. "Understood. Initiate lockdown procedures and begin a facility-wide search." She turned to Benjamin and Astra. "We'll have to alter our flight plan. I'm sorry, but we can't risk a direct route now." As the shuttle lifted off, joined by the escort fleet, Benjamin held Zara close. The girl's eyes were wide as she watched her home for the past months shrink into the distance. Their journey through space was tense, with the fleet taking a circuitous route to evade potential pursuit. Midway through their voyage, Zara suddenly cried out, her hands pressed against her temples. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Astra asked, alarm clear in her voice. Zara's voice trembled as she spoke. "So many voices. I can hear them all. The crews on the other ships. Their thoughts. It's too much." Benjamin and Astra exchanged worried glances, unsure how to comfort their daughter as she grappled with this surge in her abilities. They did their best to soothe her, but it was clear that Zara was struggling to process the influx of mental information. Their already precarious situation took a turn for the worse when an unidentified vessel appeared at the edge of a nearby star system. Captain Lyra's voice came through the comm, tense but controlled. "All ships, execute evasive pattern Delta. We may have company." The escort fleet plunged into an asteroid field, the ships weaving between massive chunks of space rock. Benjamin's stomach lurched with each near miss, his hands clutching the chairs of his seat. Suddenly, Zara's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. "I can see it," she whispered. "The patterns, the movements of the asteroids. We need to adjust our course 3 degrees to port. Now!" The navigation officer, startled by Zara's outburst, hesitated for a moment before following her instruction. The ship smoothly glided past a cluster of asteroids that would have otherwise blocked their path. As Zara continued to provide guidance, her voice growing stronger and more confident, Benjamin realized that his daughter's enhanced cognitive abilities were proving to be their unexpected salvation. The pursuing ship launched a series of probes, their strange energy signatures interfering with the fleet's systems. Alarms blared as key functions began to fail across multiple ships. In this moment of crisis, Zara's abilities evolved once again. Benjamin watched in awe as his daughter closed her eyes, her face a mask of concentration. Suddenly, he felt a presence in his mind, not invasive, but comforting. He realized that Zara had established a mental link with the entire fleet. "I can help us work together," Zara's voice echoed in Benjamin's mind. "We can move as one." Through this unexpected telepathic network, the fleet executed a series of complex maneuvers with perfect synchronization. They outpaced their pursuers and navigated the treacherous asteroid field with newfound grace. The unidentified ship, unable to match their coordinated movements, eventually broke off pursuit. However, the encounter had taken its toll on the escort fleet. Captain Lyra's voice came through the comm once more, tinged with resignation. "We've sustained damage to our primary systems, and our energy reserves are critically low. We'll need to divert to the nearest space station for repairs." As the fleet limped towards the space station, Benjamin and Astra exchanged worried glances. Their journey to Vulcan would be delayed, and they now faced the prospect of navigating an unfamiliar and potentially dangerous environment. The space station loomed before them, a massive structure teeming with life and activity. As their ship docked, Benjamin could see beings of various species moving about the bustling port. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges that lay ahead in this unexpected detour. Zara, her face pressed against the viewport, watched the alien world beyond with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "What happens now, Pa?" she asked, her voice small but curious. Benjamin placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, his own uncertainty hidden behind a reassuring smile. "Now we adapt," he said, as the airlock hissed open, revealing the vibrant, chaotic world of the space station beyond. As the airlock hissed open, Benjamin, Astra, and Zara stepped onto the bustling promenade of the space station. The air was thick with a cacophony of alien languages and the scent of exotic foods wafting from nearby vendors. Zara's eyes widened as she took in the dizzying array of species moving about the station, her heightened senses struggling to process the influx of new information. Captain Lyra quickly ushered them through the crowd, her hand resting on her sidearm as she scanned for potential threats. "This way," she said, guiding them towards a less populated area. "I've arranged temporary quarters for you in a secure section of the station." As they walked, Benjamin noticed the curious glances directed at Zara. Some were merely intrigued, while others seemed wary or even hostile. He placed a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder, drawing her closer. Their quarters, though modest, offered a welcome respite from the chaos of the station. Captain Lyra wasted no time in establishing a security perimeter, recruiting a diverse team of station personnel to supplement her own crew. "I've got Denobulan, human, and even a few Andorian security officers on rotation," Lyra explained, her voice low. "We'll keep you safe while the repairs are underway." Benjamin nodded, grateful for her thoroughness. "Thank you, Captain. How long do you think we'll be here?" Lyra's expression tightened. "Hard to say. The damage was extensive. At least a week, possibly 2. Astra, who had been quiet since their arrival, spoke up. "We should use this time to help Zara. Her abilities are growing stronger, and she needs to learn control." Benjamin agreed, and they set about converting a corner of their living space into a makeshift training area. Using techniques they had learned from the scientists at the research facility, they began working with Zara to refine her telepathic skills. Days passed, filled with intense training sessions, interspersed with moments of quiet family time. Zara made steady progress, learning to filter out the constant barrage of thoughts and emotions from the station's inhabitants. It was during one of these sessions that everything changed. Zara sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed in concentration, when suddenly her body went rigid. Her eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. "Zara?" Astra called, alarmed. "What's happening?" The young girl's voice when she spoke was distant and strained. "I can see a meeting. Secret. Andorians and others. They're talking about me." Benjamin knelt beside his daughter, his heart racing. "What are they saying, sweetheart?" Zara's brow furrowed. "They want, samples. My DNA. Something about purity. The implications hit Benjamin like a physical blow. He exchanged a horrified glance with Astra before activating his comm unit. "Captain Lyra, we need you here immediately. We have a situation." Within minutes, Lyra arrived, her face grim as Benjamin relayed what Zara had seen. The captain's hand clenched into a fist. The genetic purity front. They must have infiltrated the station. As they discussed their next move, the lights in their quarters flickered ominously. A moment later, Lyra's comm unit crackled to life. "Captain," a gruff voice said, "we've got widespread power fluctuations across the station. Chief Engineer Mokhtar is investigating, but it doesn't look like a natural occurrence." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Understood. Increase security patrols and keep me updated." She turned back to Benjamin and Astra. "We need to move quickly. If the GPF is here, they may already know about Zara." As if in response to her words, the station's security alerts began blaring. The lights flickered again, then went out completely, plunging them into darkness. "Everyone stay calm," Lyra commanded, her voice steady despite the tension evident in her posture. She activated her wrist-mounted flashlight, casting eerie shadows across the room. Benjamin pulled Zara close, feeling her small body trembling against him. Astra moved to stand protectively in front of them, her denobulan physiology allowing her to see better in the darkness than her human companions. The sound of running footsteps echoed from the corridor outside, growing louder by the second. Lyra raised her weapon, aiming it at the door. Suddenly, Zara gasped. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice tinged with fear. "I can feel their thoughts. They want to take me away." The door to their quarters burst open, revealing a group of masked figures silhouetted against the emergency lights in the hallway. Lyra opened fire, her phaser cutting through the darkness. Chaos erupted as Lyra's security team engaged the intruders. The confined space of the quarters quickly became a battlefield, filled with the sounds of struggle and the acrid smell of discharged energy weapons. Benjamin, drawing on training he hoped he'd never have to use, placed himself between the attackers and his family. He lashed out at a masked figure that got too close, his fist connecting with a satisfying crunch. Astra, her eyes glinting in the dim light, moved with surprising agility. She targeted vulnerable points on their assailants' bodies, her knowledge of various alien physiologies proving invaluable. Amidst the fray, Zara's eyes began to glow once more. Benjamin felt a strange sensation in his mind, a presence that was unmistakably his daughter. Suddenly, he could sense the positions of everyone in the room with perfect clarity. "Lyra, duck!" he called out, the warning leaving his lips before he fully understood why. The captain dropped to the ground just as a stun blast passed through the space where her head had been. As the battle raged on, Benjamin realized that Zara had established a mental link between them all. Through this unexpected connection, Lyra and her team moved with uncanny coordination, anticipating their opponent's moves and reacting with lightning speed. The tide of the battle turned, and soon the intruders were subdued. As Lyra's team secured the attackers, emergency power flickered back to life, revealing the aftermath of the intense struggle. Among the captured assailants, Benjamin spotted a familiar face. Dr. Elena Rossi lay unconscious, her GPF insignia clearly visible on her uniform. Lyra, her expression grim, turned to Benjamin and Astra. "We need to get you off this station immediately. It's no longer safe here." As they hurriedly gathered their belongings, preparing for yet another hasty departure, Benjamin's comm unit chimed. The message that came through would change everything. "Ambassador Walker," Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the speaker, "we've just received an urgent transmission from Vulcan. You need to hear this immediately." "Ambassador Walker," Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the speaker, "we've just received an urgent transmission from Vulcan. You need to hear this." Benjamin's heart raced as he listened to the Admiral's words. The Vulcan Science Academy had detected a unique subspace anomaly near their planet, one that they believed might be linked to Zara's hybrid physiology. "We're changing course," Admiral Chen announced. "The escort fleet will head directly to Vulcan. We need to investigate this connection immediately." As the fleet altered its trajectory, Benjamin noticed a shift in Zara's demeanor. His daughter grew quieter, more introspective. At night, she tossed and turned, mumbling about strange alien landscapes that filled her dreams. Concerned, Dr. Phlox ran a series of tests on Zara during their journey. The results were startling. Her hybrid physiology is undergoing another significant change, he explained, gesturing to a display of rapidly shifting cellular structures. It seems to be responding to our proximity to the anomaly. Days passed in a blur of anticipation and worry. Finally, the red planet of Vulcan loomed before them. As they entered orbit, a transmission came through from the surface. "Ambassador Walker," a stern Vulcan voice intoned, "this is Ambassador Krell. You and your family will be escorted to a secure facility near our capital immediately upon landing." The moment their shuttle touched down, they were whisked away in a sleek Vulcan transport. Zara pressed her face against the window, taking in the rust-colored landscape and towering spires of the Vulcan architecture. At the facility, they were greeted by Ambassador Krell and a striking Vulcan woman introduced as Talar, a renowned xenobiologist. Without preamble, Talar led them to a briefing room dominated by a large holographic display. "The anomaly we detected is unlike anything we've encountered before," Talar explained, her voice steady despite the gravity of her words. The hologram flickered to life, showing a swirling vortex of energy. "It appears to be a stable wormhole, potentially leading to an unexplored region of space or even another galaxy." Benjamin felt Zara stiffen beside him. Talar continued, "What's truly remarkable is this." She tapped a control, and a new image appeared alongside the wormhole, a familiar pattern of brainwaves. "This is the energy signature of the anomaly. And this," she said, bringing up another nearly identical pattern, "is a recording of Zara's brainwave patterns during her recent telepathic surges." The implications were staggering. Benjamin opened his mouth to speak, but a blaring alarm cut him off. Red lights flashed throughout the facility as a voice rang out over the intercom. "Security breach in sectors 3 and 4. All personnel to defensive positions." Ambassador Krell's communicator chirped. His expression darkened as he listened to the incoming message. "It's the Genetic Purity Front," he announced grimly. "They've followed us here and breached our outer defenses." Captain Lyra, who had accompanied them from the ship, immediately took charge. "We need to move the family to a more secure location," she ordered, drawing her weapon. As they hurried through the facility's winding corridors, the sounds of battle grew closer. Phaser fire echoed off the walls, punctuated by shouts and the crash of failing equipment. Suddenly, a group of masked figures rounded the corner ahead of them. At their head was a tall, blue-skinned Andorian, his antenna quivering with excitement. "There she is," he hissed, pointing at Zara. "Secure the hybrid." Benjamin pushed Zara behind him as Captain Lyra and the Vulcan security forces engaged the attackers. The air filled with the acrid smell of ozone as energy weapons discharged on both sides. In the chaos of the firefight, Benjamin felt a strange pressure building in his mind. He glanced at Zara and saw her eyes glowing with that now familiar otherworldly light. Before he could react, a wave of invisible force radiated out from his daughter. The attacking GPF forces stumbled, clutching their heads in pain. Some collapsed outright, while others swayed on their feet, clearly disoriented. The defenders, caught by surprise but unaffected, quickly capitalized on the opportunity to subdue their incapacitated opponents. As the last of the attackers fell, Benjamin turned to check on Zara. To his horror, he saw her crumple to the ground, her eyes rolling back in her head. "Zara!" Astra cried out, rushing to their daughter's side. Dr. Phlox was there in an instant, his medical scanner whirring as he passed it over Zara's still form. "We need to get her to the medical bay immediately," he said urgently. "Her vital signs are erratic." Talar stepped forward. "Follow me," she said, leading them swiftly through the facility to a state-of-the-art medical center equipped with unfamiliar Vulcan technology. As Dr. Phlox and Talar worked to stabilize Zara, Benjamin and Astra could only watch helplessly. The minutes stretched into hours, filled with tense silence broken only by the beeping of medical equipment and the low murmur of the doctors' voices. Finally, Talar approached them, her face a mask of Vulcan calm. "We've managed to stabilize her condition," she began, "but we've made a disturbing discovery. Zara's hybrid physiology is resonating with the subspace anomaly, causing rapid and unpredictable changes in her cellular structure." Benjamin felt his knees go weak. Astra gripped his hand tightly as Talar continued. We believe we may have a solution, but it carries significant risks. We propose using the energy from the subspace anomaly itself to stabilize Zara's condition. However, this procedure could permanently alter her physiology in ways we cannot fully predict. As Benjamin and Astra grappled with this impossible decision, alarms began to blare once again. Ambassador Krell burst into the medical bay, his usual composure shaken. Long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet of unknown origin emerging from the far side of the anomaly, he announced. They're on a direct course for Vulcan. Benjamin looked from Krell to Talar, then down at his unconscious daughter. The weight of the galaxy seemed to press down on his shoulders as he realized that the decision he and Astra made next could change the course of history. Benjamin took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. We need to proceed with the procedure, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Astra nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Talar and Dr. Phlox wasted no time. They quickly prepared Zara for the risky treatment, attaching various monitoring devices to her small form. Benjamin and Astra were ushered into an adjacent observation room, where they watched anxiously through a large view screen. The Vulcan medical facility bustled with activity as alarms continued to blare, signaling the approaching alien fleet. Through the observation room's window, Benjamin could see the skies of Vulcan filled with ships from the Joint Task Force, led by Admiral Chen and Captain Lyra, mobilizing to defend the planet against potential threats. Inside the treatment chamber, Talar activated a series of complex devices. A shimmering energy field enveloped Zara's unconscious form, pulsing with an otherworldly glow. The connection to the subspace anomaly was established, and Zara's body began to react. Benjamin gripped Astra's hand tightly as they watched their daughter's vital signs fluctuate wildly on the monitors. Dr. Phlox's brow furrowed in concentration as he made minute adjustments to the equipment. Suddenly, Zara's eyes snapped open, glowing with an intense ethereal light. She sat up abruptly, her body now emanating a soft, pulsating aura. Benjamin and Astra rushed into the room, their hearts pounding with a mixture of joy and apprehension. "Zara!" Astra called out, reaching for her daughter. Zara turned to face her parents, her expression eerily calm and filled with a wisdom far beyond her years. When she spoke, her voice resonated with newfound power. "Mom, Dad, don't be afraid," she said, her words carrying a strange echo. "I've made contact with them, the beings from the other side of the anomaly. They're called the Nexarians." Benjamin exchanged a bewildered glance with Astra. "Sweetheart, what do you mean? Who are the Nexarians?" Zara's gaze seemed to look through them, focusing on something beyond. "They're not invaders, Dad. They're explorers like us. They've been watching, waiting for the right moment to make contact." As if on cue, Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the facility's communication system. "The unknown fleet has entered Vulcan's orbit. They're holding position, no signs of aggression." Zara closed her eyes, her face a mask of concentration. "I can connect us. I can help them communicate." Before anyone could react, Zara's aura intensified. Benjamin felt a strange pressure in his mind, and suddenly he was aware of countless other presences: the gathered representatives of the Interspecies Cooperative Council, the Vulcan High Command, and something else, vast and alien. Through this telepathic link, a chorus of voices spoke as one. "Greetings, people of Vulcan and the Interspecies Cooperative Council. We are the Nexarians, and we come in peace." The next few minutes were a flurry of telepathic communication. The Nexarians explained their long observation of this part of the galaxy, their wait for a signal that the time was right for contact. Zara's unique hybrid physiology had acted as that beacon, drawing them across the vast distances of space. As the initial shock wore off and preliminary discussions began, alarms blared once again. Captain Lyra's voice cut through the telepathic haze. "We have a security breach. GPF forces have infiltrated the facility." Benjamin's blood ran cold as he realized the threat to his daughter. He and Astra moved instinctively to shield Zara just as the door burst open. Kraz, the Andorian leader of the Genetic Purity Front, stormed in with a small team of heavily armed followers. Step away from the abomination, Kraz snarled, his antenna quivering with awe-inspiring rage. Benjamin stood his ground, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. You don't understand what's happening here, Kraz. This is bigger than all of us. Kraz raised his weapon, his eyes wild with fanaticism. I understand perfectly. That thing is a threat to the purity of all our species. It ends now. Just as the situation seemed poised to erupt into violence, Zara stepped forward, her aura pulsing with increased intensity. She raised her hand, and a wave of energy washed over the room. Benjamin felt a sensation of profound calm settle over him. He saw Kraz and his followers lower their weapons, their expressions shifting from hatred to confusion, then to wonder. Zara's voice echoed in all their minds, sharing visions of a future where diverse species work together, achieving incredible scientific and cultural advancements. Benjamin saw glimpses of worlds he'd never imagined, technologies beyond his comprehension, and the beauty of countless alien cultures living in harmony. When the vision faded, Kraz fell to his knees, his weapon clattering to the floor. I had no idea, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. How could I have been so blind? As the GPF members surrendered, Benjamin turned to his daughter in awe. Zara smiled at him, her eyes still glowing with that otherworldly light. This is just the beginning, Dad, she said. There's so much more to come.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, I liked the story, and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.